Okay, welcome back to another episode of my podcast on the future of business and technology. I'm your host, Bernard Ma. Today, we are diving into what might be a crucial role emerging in the AI revolution that not many people are talking about, the AI analyst. On top of that, we'll explore the rise of AI operations as a critical business function, examine how organizations can prepare their data for the age of agentic AI, and discuss what the future holds for enterprise analytics in an increasingly AI driven world. To help us with this, I'm joined today by Andy MacMillan, the CEO of Alteryx, a leading enterprise analytics platform. Andy, welcome to the show.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on the show, Bernard. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Burlingame, California, in the Bay Area, just a little bit south of San Francisco.
Excellent. So let's start by looking at this new AI analyst job role then. What are the key factors behind the creation of the AI analyst role, and how do you see this role evolving over the next decade?
I think there's going to be a whole set of new roles that emerge because of AI. I think we talk a lot about the technology roles today, people that are building the large language models, people that are building the AI agents. But I think what's going to also be needed is the business expertise. Who are the people that, when you're writing an agent that handles, I don't know, merchandise returns, understands merchandising and your return policies and all of those things. And so I think there's going to be this emerging role of people who come from business analyst backgrounds that are going to be taking their skill set and rethinking, how do I apply my knowledge about an area of the business into a more and more AI driven business process? And we've been working on the data side of that problem. I think there's a bunch of people that are going to be rethinking sort of enterprise workflows. People are going to be rethinking how their enterprise software applications work. And I think the real missing piece from my perspective is those kind of business specialists, right? Think of every aspect of a business. There are people that work in that part of the business that are they're going to have to bring some of their knowledge to bear on how a company operates and help the company implement those AI technologies.
Okay, so the AI analyst is doing what?
If I give you an example, we're talking to a customer right now that wants to take some of the information from their sales processes and make it available in an AI agent that they've rolled out to their. And so they want their AI agent to be able to answer questions like, what will my commission be on this deal? What is the available to renew amount at this customer? And so the challenge is that those questions today get answered by their revenue operations team. And there are people that understand, for example, the sales team commission structure and the different programs they're running and how they compensate the sales team. And so sometimes easy questions require knowledge to answer them. So if you go ask a sales leader, what's the commission plan? They're going to say, which team are they on? What region are they in? What does their comp plan look like? What spiffs and programs are we running? And to answer that, you might have multiple systems you have to go to pull some information. RevOps teams do this all the time. You might have to grab how much quota attainment have they done maybe in your CRM. You might have to go get their commission plan out of your commission platform. You might have to get their base salary out of your HR database because usually their commission is a percent of their salary. So you'd have to grab a couple of data points and you have to know how to do essentially the calculation. And so my point is, I think there's going to be roles emerging where somebody gets asked, go train the AI how to do that. And that's going to mean you have to bring the data together. It means you're going to have to understand how commissions are calculated at your company. You're probably going to want to pull that data together and put it into the AI system. So you can imagine maybe an analyst creating a little table of all the commission rates by all the reps, putting it somewhere where an AI tool can use it. And then what's going to happen is next quarter, there's a new sales program that gets rolls out, or next year, there's a new commission plan that gets rolled out. And somebody's going to turn right back to that same person and say, you need to go update the way that thing answers questions because we changed the way the business is operating. And so I think of the AI analyst or an AI ops person being, again, a business user, somebody from that revenue operations team, in my example, that is working with the data behind the scenes that's making the AI run. That's working with the calculation, telling it, how do we do commissions at this company at this moment with these data sets? You can't simply generically ask it, how do commissions work? Or what would my commission be? And it doesn't know how you calculate commissions. You don't want it making that up. You want somebody in there who understands that, giving it very specific, both instructions and importantly, data. There's going to be a process that has to exist where a company says, we're allowing this bit of data to be used in this way for this AI process. And I think that's the other big blocker, frankly, that we're seeing organizations run into. I've talked to so many executive teams where top down, there's a mandate, we're going to use a ton of AI. And then they realize very quickly, no one's comfortable simply letting, a large language model read their entire CRM database and hope for the best when it answers questions. There needs to be a methodical approach to saying what bits of data, which calculations are available in the AI tool, and how do we do that in a systematic way that legal and compliance and security and everybody look at and go, okay, we're all right with this bit of data, with this calculation being used in this AI tool at this point in time. And so I think, again, that to me is a business problem, not a technology problem. We certainly have the technology to point a large language model at your CRM database and let it crawl it, but nobody's jumping in like that. People want a systematic way to do that. And so again, I think that's where this business analyst role or this AI ops role is going to emerge.
So how will the AI analyst fit into traditional enterprise data analytics and business intelligence teams? Will they supplement existing roles?
I don't know yet, to be honest. I think it's an interesting opportunity for people that have that skill set. I do think a lot of organizations are going to turn to their business intelligence and data teams and say to them, hey, we have a kind of a new problem. Almost all the information in an organization today is organized by your business applications, right? Your CRM, your ERP, you buy these big applications to run your business. They generate both the user interface and the data that runs against that interface. We do have many customers who use what's called data warehousing. I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with data warehousing and the idea of aggregating that information into a big centralized data lake. But even there, if you think about the data, when you move the data, when you grab all that data out of ERP, it's still organized the way your ERP system organized it. Like the tables, the columns, the structure, everything's designed to support the running of the ERP application. And I think one of the things that organizations are realizing right now is they might organize their information quite differently for AI. If you were building an agentic workforce, if you were building a specific large language model that you wanted to be able to do certain things that maybe accesses ERP data and HR data or ERP data and CRM data. And so what we're seeing is what is essentially the world's largest data prep and data transformation project is about to start, I think, which is sort of companies rethinking what they need to use this data for. And so to your question, I think that means they're going to turn to these data and analytics teams for help to reorganize, reconnect their data, to take some of the logic that's often contained in these business applications and bring it down to the data layer, right? Again, if you think about the way your data sits under your CRM application, it's really designed for the logic in the CRM application. But what I want now is that logic to be in an AI agent. What I need to do is go into my data and really change the way it's structured, right? The way that I would, again, put the logic around that data. I'm going to ask my business intelligence team, my analysts to go, hey, can you put, to my commission example earlier, the logic around how we did commissionings in at the data level? Can you build a data workflow that pulls that data together, runs that logic, builds that calculation, makes it available to our AI infrastructure? That's going to be a huge new landscape for everybody that works in analytics that I think is going to be really exciting. There's a lot of folks right now in different roles at different companies that are quite concerned about what does AI mean for me and for my job. This is, go to any conference, any software vendor, they're showing their AI features and everybody in the audience is half excited and half nervous because they're trying to figure out, like, where do I as a person fit in with this? And one of the things that I think that's really exciting about our space is, yes, we're putting a bunch of AI in our products, and I'm happy to talk about that. Yes, we're seeing people use our products in and around their AI use cases. But a lot of what I think it's going to do is create opportunities for people that know products like ours that work in the analytics space to take on this big data challenge of reorganizing your data. And again, it's not just reorganizing it from a computer science standpoint. I think it's actually bringing your understanding of the business, right? Again, think of people in RevOps or supply chain, finance team that really understand how the data represents what the business is trying to accomplish. And I think for the next decade, there's going to be a huge opportunity for everybody that knows how to work with these data sets and understands the business. Again, these are business users, not simply data scientists. These are people that understand how the data makes the business work. I think are going to get tasked with doing this massive reorganization of data. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for people that have the skill set.
So you mentioned skill set a few times. It would be great to outline what you think is the perfect skill set for an AI analyst.
Yeah, we think of our users at Alteryx as being people that are really amazing with spreadsheets that want to go the next level beyond that. I want to maybe work with a much larger data set, but I want to be able to work across 3 or 4 different data types. And I want to be able to kind of prep and blend and bring it together. I want to think through a workflow that maybe is going to run every day, every hour that sort of solves this problem. That's really who our user has been for the past 15, 20 years, is people that are kind of data workers. Like they understand how data makes the business work. They've moved beyond the spreadsheet and they're moving now to how do I automate a workflow? How do I solve this problem on an ongoing basis? And so I think that is a good prototype for the kind of people that are going to be tasked with going through this data transformation to get it ready for AI. We're going to have a bunch of C-level executives saying, why can't I get the right answers out of this AI agent? And they're going to turn to their teams. They're going to say, who understands how this is supposed to work, but can really think about the data behind it? What makes this work? Why is the AI agent giving me a certain answer? What if I want it to give me something different? So imagine the people that you work with, maybe your listeners are some of these people, but the kind of people that, as a CEO, you turn to and go, why are our sales down in the Southwest region? And there are the people on your team that go, I can grab that question. I can go get some data out of our CRM, but I can also grab some retail data from the industry and I can look at some economic data. I can pull that together into a model and I can come back and go, the reason that we're down in the Southwest is that we actually have more retail business there. Retail sales are actually down and we're in line with how they're down. So that's the reason. Like that kind of person is the kind of person that's going to solve the data challenges that AI is going to represent. And again, I think it is really that mix of data understanding, but business acumen. It's not just somebody who can do really interesting computer science or data science. You're going to have to understand like what really makes the business tick. And I think that role I think is going to be in really high demand if companies think about how to really take advantage of this next wave of technology.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in the long run, the business acumen will probably become even more important as we'll have AI to do some of the heavy lifting around analytics. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
so in the age of the AI analyst, how will the tech stacks used to work and interface with data change?
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's going to go through maybe a very meaningful transition. I know there's been, as I mentioned earlier, this large movement to centralize a lot of data into these data lakes and cloud data warehouses. I think on one hand, that could prove to be quite useful. If you've done the work to aggregate a lot of your data from around the enterprise, I think the challenge is going to be, again, that data was originally organized to support a set of business applications. And what I'm finding more and more when I talk to customers is they're not looking to go in the API of that business application every time they make a call into an AI agent. They don't want to call 6 APIs and then have to write code to pull all that together. The idea is I want to empower my AI with the data and the knowledge in a systematic way. So I think what we're going to see people doing is taking that knowledge and wanting to get lower in the data stack. And that means you're either going to be rolling out a set of workflows that go to the data under those business applications in a way where an analyst knows how to get some of that data out, do something with it again, blend it with other data, whatever needs to happen and make it available to AI. Or in the circumstances where people do have these large sort of centralized data lake strategies, I think what you're going to find organizations now struggling with is, okay, I have this giant data lake. Again, I'm not just going to say AI, go nuts, read my database. No board is going to say, yeah, like all of our intellectual property, all of our confidential information, we're just letting an AI read it all and hope for the best. I think what you're going to need is some kind of systematic approach to start to know what data and under what conditions and with which calculation are we making available in which AI tool. And so we've been referring to this internally at Alteryx as customers creating a AI data clearinghouse. And the idea is how do you empower a business analyst to build a workflow, whether it moves the data or it's labeling the data in place in this large data lake, maybe creating additional data like calculations and things like that. But how do you let them create a workflow that is visual in nature, that a business user understands, that you could put processes around? So if I enable a business analyst to create a specific workflow, maybe a workflow around, I don't know, how returns should work in my supply chain and retail business, I want to be able to take that workflow, that visual representation of how that data is going to be put into the AI model. And I want to be able to take that workflow through an approval process where my legal and privacy team can look at it. Maybe I have regulatory compliance that I'm responsible for, right? So if you think of the return process, often involves things like credit cards. And so there's maybe compliance I have to have run past this workflow. So imagine as a CEO being able to say, we've implemented a new agent for our return process, and it is using some of our proprietary and confidential information, maybe including customer information, because that's how it's smart enough to do the job. However, as the CEO, I've put in place a clearinghouse where I know exactly what data is being used. I know how it's being used. I know the calculations behind it. I've had my legal team, my compliance team, my InfoSec team have all reviewed it. Maybe I'm even taking that to my audit committee and my board, because this is a board level problem at most organizations where, again, they want to be AI forward, but nobody's willing yet to put their data into the AI tools. I think that's a really big challenge. And so I think this idea of a clearinghouse is going to emerge on how are we empowering people to systematically make business decisions on what data gets used in an AI tool, and how do we give people the controls to do that? And again, I don't think that's a bunch of data scientists writing Python code. I think that's going to be a business analyst workflow that the team can stand around and go, yeah, are we okay with this data being used in this AI tool? I think that's how people will do a crawl, walk, run on getting their data into AI.
Yeah, you talked about having data that is AI ready, which is a stumbling block for many organizations. So, what are you seeing? What are enterprises getting right and wrong about this concept today of having their data AI ready?
Yeah, I think AI ready, I think when folks first hear the term, what they think about is formats, right? Oh, is it pulling it into a RAG format so that the AI can suggest it? And I actually think it's a bigger problem that starts earlier. So that part of the problem is real. Like you do have to technically put it in a format that the AI tools can utilize. But I think the bigger issue is earlier than that, which is often when you ask a business analyst a question, sometimes even a simple question, they often ask you a couple questions back. When you say, what is the value of the contract that's up for renewal at this customer? Often your team says to you, are you including the professional services? And what about the little stub deal that we did through part of the year? And what about this? And what about this? And so if your data is AI ready, I think it means that somebody has done the work to bake in a lot of those questions and think through, what does it mean when somebody asks a question? What is the amount available to renew at this customer? And maybe your team has said, actually, we have two or three different ways we answer that question, depending on some other question. So if I go into my CRM data, it's not going to know to ask me those questions. It's just going to have these tables full of a bunch of different data elements. And maybe in my CRM application, I have some logic that does those calculations that tells me the different numbers. How do I build a data workflow that grabs that data set that's sitting underneath my CRM database, puts those calculations around it, and also puts some context around it? Maybe it's very clearly labeled. This is the available to renew with ProServe. This is the available to renew only software. This is the total available to renew, including a stub deal that they did, or whatever those things are, right? And then when you go train the AI, you can say, like, we're training you on how to do the available to renew in a customer, but you might want to ask the person asking you the question, do you want to include these three things? And then here's the answers.
Mm.
And so now my data is AI ready. My data has the business context around it. It has the calculations that the business runs on as part of the data. It's the same number that finance uses when I look at the contract as what I'm telling my salesperson. And most importantly, it's simple and easy for the AI to consume. Because again, the alternative is I have to have my AI calling all of my business applications, going in the front door of that API. I don't think what most people imagine AI being is simply a chat interface to your CRM or a chat interface to your ERP. They actually want something smarter than that, right? They want something that's using logic and reasoning and understanding the data set. So to have AI ready data, you've got to look at your data as not being designed for your business applications, but what's the data that's designed for your AI applications? And I think there's a transformation of that data asset that's going to happen. So I think any companies that are not thinking about that step is realizing quite quickly that I can't just throw my business application data into an AI tool and hope for the best. I actually have to put some context around
Yeah, so business context is key. I agree. Beyond data, I think another stumbling block is having the right skills in the organization to really leverage AI. So, to what extent does the business value of AI remain locked behind skills gaps? And how do you foresee AI operations teams working to address this function and this?
That's a great question. I think there are definitely skill gaps. And part of it is I think it's not like you're going to find somebody where they post on their resume 10 years of experience using ChatGPT to solve problems. It just, that doesn't exist. Now, you might find people that have been working with different AI models, but now again, you're getting back into kind of the computer science realm of AI, right? People that will tell you like, oh yeah, I've been building regression models or machine learning models for a long time. That's great, but I think that's different than maybe somebody that has the skill of really understanding how to do prompting for a large language model. And so you're going to imagine now having, again, where these things come together. If I go get my enterprise data AI ready, so I'm not just getting a generic answer from an AI agent or a large language model, I'm actually getting an answer that's knowledgeable about my business, right? That understands how my business operates, the data behind my business. There's prompting that goes with that too. So how does my team or my customers know how to interact with this in a way where they're going to get value out of the work that I've done getting the data ready? So I think there's a pretty substantial learning curve that we're all going to go through on learning, when do I go to AI tools? How do I use both broad AI capabilities? Like we've done this at Alteryx, like we're using a large language model at scale internally. It's quite interesting, but we're sort of person by person, department by department, learning use cases and how to enable people to use it. And every time we enable people to use it, there's a whole process we go through. How do you write good prompts? How do you write a custom GPT? And how do you think about doing that? And how do you make it so other people can leverage it? And what's the life cycle around that? How do we make sure the things that people write work going forward? You can only almost imagine the kind of tech debt problem of it. Every employee wrote 3 custom GPTs, and then your employee base turns over 5-10% during every year. In a couple of years, I've got all these GPTs that nobody's maintaining. Are they updating? Are they accurate? There's a whole set of infrastructure around that we're going to have to put together. And so again, there's going to be skills around that. So I think every step of the way, we as leaders should be thinking about how do we enable our team to have the skills and the capabilities moving forward to make them productive, to grow their careers. We talk a lot about this at Alteryx in our All Hands, but I want everybody who works here to have an AI forward career path where they think about, what does AI mean for me? How does it improve my productivity? How do I improve my value as an employee, my marketability over time in my career? Because I've been using AI. And I think to your question, that is a skill gap. That is people learning, what does AI mean for my role? How do I use it effectively? What new capabilities do I have to develop? Prompting, is it data related? Think about how to connect AI capabilities together. Is it a systems problem? Is it even just a personal productivity concept? It's interesting when you talk to people. I was at a CEO event last night, and one of the main topics of conversation amongst CEOs was, how are you using it to be more productive? It's interesting. That's essentially a skills gap. We're all trying to learn how to do this. And I think the best answer is for people to be open about it, to organizationally talk about how are we enabling our people to get good at this. But I think in every step of the process, there are going to be new skills they're going to learn, new data skills, new prompting skills, new productivity skills, new system skills. I think that's exciting. I know for a lot of people that are maybe a little more change averse, that's probably nerve wracking, but I think it's a really exciting moment. And I think people that embrace this change, that think about themselves skilling up, I think, especially as we've been talking about in the data space, I think it's a massive career opportunity for people that really embrace learning these new skills and thinking about how to solve these new problems.
Yeah, so you mentioned the question, how are you using it? If someone asked you that question, how would you answer it?
I use it a ton. I think for me, it's incredibly helpful with writing just to drive clarity. You can ask all kinds of different questions when you're drafting something, from clarity and conciseness to thinking about tone, thinking about your audience. I found that to be incredibly helpful. I use it a lot for research. I think the new research models that are coming out are really valuable. And then we started using it quite a bit internally, where we're thinking about, again, building these data workflows to empower us to have a large language model, I can actually ask questions about the business, which I think is really critical. I think about the number of times as a CEO, I'm sending a one-off Teams message or a Slack message to someone in my RevOps team, someone in my finance team, or just trying to get an answer to something. Hey, I'm getting on a call with this customer. What's going on with this open ticket? What's going on with this transaction? To have an ability to do that with almost like a co-pilot type experience where, again, it's knowledgeable about our business, I think is incredibly valuable. Not only does it save me a lot of time, but think of the amount of running around people do when they get that note from a CEO, what's going on here, and then everybody chasing out a bit of information. I think that's a real game changer. For me, it's personal productivity. I use it a lot in managing my day and getting through and prioritizing things. And then the other is just information at your fingertips, right? The ability to, hey, I was in a meeting, somebody mentioned to me this thing's going on. I want to go get that bit of data. I want to understand what's going on there. It's incredibly powerful for digging in.
Yeah, very good. So that was generative AI. The one technology everyone is talking about today is AI agents. How far do you sense we are from widespread adoption? And where does the AI agent role come into in their implementation?
Yeah, I think we're in the early stages, and I think adoption will be pretty high in the early stage of getting what I would consider to be a very focused agent, probably from the vendor you bought the business application from first. So I think what'll happen initially is people will say, look, I have an ERP vendor, or I have a forecasting tool that I use, or I have a commissioning tool that I use. And I think those companies are going to show up pretty soon and say, hey, I have an agent for the domain that I know about. And I think that will be helpful. It'll be helpful to have if I use commissioning as an example, it'd be really helpful to have a commissioning agent where instead of having to go look up my commission statement, I can ask the agent and you can go do that one. What I think will happen shortly after that, though, is the barriers that we have between these business applications will reemerge with our agent. I'll give you a simple one. If you think about a forecasting agent, a lot of us buy some kind of forecasting product that runs typically on top of our CRM. And what the forecasting agent does, if your listeners aren't familiar with it, is it looks at the last couple of quarters. How have we done forecasting? How much of the pipeline closes? Which reps are closing what they say they're going to close? And it builds a simple regression model. And then it predicts your forecast. It's actually really quite helpful. And most of those vendors now are saying, we're going to build an agent that does that. And the agent's going to not only use that regression model, but it could look at some other data sources. Maybe our meetings happening with that customer, there's a contract in play. There's some really cool things it could do to tighten up that forecast. But I think what will happen shortly after that is people will say, that's really great. But maybe the number one thing that my forecast needs is, I don't know, if they're using a lot of our product, then that's the indicator that not only are they going to renew, but they're going to buy more from us. Now I need my product data in that agent. And maybe my product data is something my product development team is putting in Databricks or something. So now I've got a bunch of data that's bespoke to my company sitting in a data lake somewhere that I really need for this forecasting agent to work really well. And then we get right back to where we were at the start of the show, which is, okay, I'm the CEO. And I say, well, really great if my forecasting agent that maybe I bought from my forecasting company, which is great, but it'd be really helpful if it also understood my product. But now I need somebody that understands my product data. What does it mean? What did we put in that database? What does it represent? So I think some analyst is going to say, I could go into that data lake. I could grab that data. I could do the transformations on it to have it make sense for AI. Because again, it's not being used by the product team. It's going to be used by this forecasting agent. So what does it need to know? How do I describe the usage? And then I want to be able to take that data, put it in a workflow and put it somewhere where that AI agent could use that data. I might want to go to my compliance and InfoSec and everybody else and say, okay, we're going to put this product data in this forecasting agent. Is everybody thumbs up good that we're going to go ahead and do this? And so I think what will happen with agents is pretty quickly, we're going to move from, I just want to buy the agent as a packaged thing from my business application vendor to, no, I really want the agent to be a whole lot smarter than that. It's great that I got the starting point from this vendor, but I'm going to have to involve the company and start building some data workflows and feed some more data to it, help it get smarter about my business. All of a sudden now I've got a forecasting agent that's really valuable. It understands product utilization. Maybe it understands my contracting process. Maybe it understands, I don't know, maybe where the rep worked at last is a good indicator of how good of a rep they're going to be while they're onboarding. So maybe it's looking at that information. I don't know. but people are going to want to be able to figure that out and make that agent smarter and smarter over time. And so I think that's what will happen. Fast adoption of the agents from the business application vendors first. And then the second stage will be, I got to get beyond the box that those things live in. And so it'll be interesting to see, does that mean companies make those agents smarter that they buy from their business application vendors? Or do they say, actually, now I'm just going to go build my own agents because I need it to talk to a bunch of my business data anyway. So do I want to buy an out of the box agent from somebody, or do I want to build my own agent? And that becomes a critical capability. And I don't know that answer, but what I believe at Alteryx is in either of those scenarios, there's a whole lot of data that people are going to have to empower some business analysts to move around and get ready for AI. And that's been the kind of the main thing that we've been focused on, trying to get our customers ready.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. We need lots of agents to be able to talk to other agents.
Which in and of itself is also a data workflow, right? So we think of workflows today as being things that people do. I think of most workflow vendors today, they organize work across people. But two agents talking to each other is really a data workflow. Again, we're going to get back to who's the business analyst that says, how does my return agent talk to my shipping agent? That's a data problem. And so again, I think it's going to be a good world to live in if you're a data analyst that understands how AI work and how to apply the logic about the business
Mm.
to these data workflows.
Absolutely. Beyond technology, then, are there ways that you see Alteryx being a key partner for enterprises that are navigating their AI-driven transformation?
I think a big one right now is, I think part of this is a technology problem, but a lot of it's a change management problem. To my story earlier about maybe having a commission agent, that's an agent that has to talk to my commission system, my CRM system, and quite likely my HR system. And so I don't know if that's an impossible thing to technologically imagine. And again, we have the ability in our product, and we've done this for many years to help people do what's called prep and blend, which is to grab those data elements, bring them together, build the calculation, pretty straightforward. And then you could make that available to an AI agent. The question is, who in the organization has to sign off on that? How do we get people comfortable with the idea that we're going to take maybe some of your HR data and put it into an AI agent? And this is where I see so many AI projects just coming to a complete standstill. I talked to 3 customers in London a few weeks ago. All 3 of them said we have a top-down mandate to use more AI and a top-down mandate that none of our data, our IP, any of our information can be put into any AI tool. So those aren't completely at odds with each other. It does mean you could use AI generically. I could ask it questions about what's on the internet and stuff. So maybe that's helpful. But I think we'd all agree the real value would be, does the AI actually understand my business? And so again, you immediately get to not just a technology problem, but what's the business process to enable that to happen? What are the controls that go in place? Nobody's going to say the AI can just read all our data and hope for the best. And nobody's going to say, well, just let every person in the company use their best judgment on what they want to load into the AI tool. There is going to need to be a control point or a clearinghouse concept where the organization can say, while we start learning this technology, we're going to think about and have a process and an approval flow on what data gets used in what way. And again, that to me is less of a technology problem and a whole lot more of best practices, business process management, approval concepts, risk management, and even change management. What happens when you approve data to go into an AI model, and then 6 months later, the legal team comes back and goes, you know what, we've been thinking about it. We don't think any of our competitive intelligence information should be in that AI tool anymore. Well, where do I go to take that back out? So again, this is where I think this clearinghouse is important. You can have a process where you go back to the clearinghouse, you go into a data workflow, like one you might build with Alteryx, and you say, okay, in this workflow, this data flow, I'm going to pull out this information. I'm going to republish this workflow. I'm going to get sign off again. And now going forward, this thing that maybe legal decided they don't want in there isn't in there anymore. But that's a set of best practices. That's a set of processes that companies are going to have to put in place. And so I think that's an area where we're finding a lot of customers wanting more from us than just technology. What they're really wanting is frankly, a business strategy of how do I think about the risk of not doing anything with my data, right? The risk of not leveraging AI is a very big risk that people are worried about. You don't want to get beat by all your competitors because they're using AI and you're not. But the risk of putting all your intellectual property, all your confidential data into an AI tool is also something people are comfortable with. Even if they own the AI tool, to be clear, this isn't about vendor trust. This isn't, I'm not willing to put it into someone else's systems. We've crossed that bridge with SaaS, right? A lot of companies put their data into the hands of trusted vendors. I think it's more just, how does it work? In my last company, I had someone ask, could we connect our AI tool to Slack? Because we have a lot of really great technical conversations in Slack. A lot of decisions are made. It would be a great knowledge base. And they're right about that. But there's also a lot of other discussions that happen in Slack, often one-on-one, and what people might mistaken as being private, right? Because you're still on a corporate server. But I'm pretty sure you don't want to just be able to ask the AI, hey, is anybody talking about any mergers and acquisitions right now? So again, that's not a technology problem. That's a governance problem, right? So how would that work? What if you wanted to let some of your Slack channels be loaded into AI? Maybe the Slack channel should have a big header on it saying, this is plugged into our AI agent. I don't know. But that to me is the kind of thing that we're helping our customers think through. It's, where does data meet compliance, meet privacy and expectation, meet enablement? Because maybe you do want some of this data in there. And so I think it's a fascinating problem set. And it's part technology, part business analyst, and then part sort of compliance and thinking
Right.
through how to give people confidence that they can start doing this, because I think those that don't are really going to get left behind.
Yeah, there are definitely lots of challenges organizations will be facing what trying to address these big challenges, I think. You joined Alteryx as CEO in December, just after the company's $4.4 billion privatization deal. What's your vision for the next phase of the company?
Yeah, thank you. Again, brand new. I don't even have stuff up in my office yet. Like it's a fresh start, as they say. Yeah, look, I think I joined because number one, I love the company. I love the product. Our users love the product. I think that's really important. I'm a product person by background. So it really matters to me sort of what the product does and how it does it. But what I see is a really big opportunity where, maybe almost to summarize today's conversation, like I think the world's data is stored in one way right now, and it's going to have to be put into a different model to be useful for AI. And I think there's nobody better positioned to do that than Alteryx. We are the world's leader in data prep and blend for business users. And so it's a great company with a really successful set of products that I think is about to have another really exciting new opportunity in front of us, which is partner with our customers to get all their data ready for AI, to build these clearinghouses and to get the business user process around how the data is going to be utilized. And I think that's really important. I ran into this problem at my last company. Again, as I was mentioning earlier, we were trying to get more of our enterprise data being used in our AI models. And it was a really hard challenge. And when I was talking to companies about what I wanted to do next, and I was talking to Ultrix, it was a little bit of a eureka moment. I'm like, this product is the answer for these data prep problems for AI. And I'm really excited to kind of to be here. We've got a really amazing company, a lot of incredibly smart people, and a really nice culture. And I think folks are excited to have this next big new opportunity to go after.
And I'd love to know about any plans to further integrate AI into the Alteryx platform. So, what can your customers look forward to?
Yeah, I think about AI and Alteryx really in four big areas. We've been talking about one, which is, imagine before your data gets into any AI system, you're using Alteryx to build this kind of clearinghouse where you can have workflows to get your data ready for whatever AI tool you're using. So that's a use case. But our actual product, there's three other big areas where we're investing in AI. One is the interface to the product. And so we built a Copilot capability where you can ask the questions about how to do things in Alteryx. It's helping you use the product, which I think is really helpful. Our analysts use the product, are really excited about that. We have another set of AI capabilities on the back end of the product, which I think is also fascinating. We're creating this concept called magic reports. And so imagine, instead of visualization being, I go to a dashboard, I go to my big company dashboard and it's all color coded and I'm clicking around trying to figure out what's going on. What if instead you were just getting a report that was telling you what's going on? My example earlier about sales being down in the Southwest is my made up example, right? What if I was getting a report, my sales report every week, and my sales report wasn't just a set of numbers, but it was an analysis. Hey, Andy, here's your report. Here's how things are going. By the way, sales are down in the Southwest. You'll notice this. I think that's a lot more interesting than a dashboard. And so magic reports is a really interesting area that we're investing in that I think our customers are finding to be very intriguing. But then in the product itself, so people build these data workflows. We have hundreds of tools that a business analyst can drag onto a palette that do things, that do data transformations, that grab data from different systems. We also want to create tools that utilize AI to solve data related challenges. I'll give you a really simple example. AI is incredibly good at reading large open text boxes and summarizing. So you can imagine, let's say I went and grabbed all my support ticket data and I bring it into Alteryx and I'm building a workflow around it. And I'm using a lot of the structured data, right? My reason codes and hold times and all this stuff where I want to do data calculation. But maybe there's a big free form text box where people describe their problem. And I might say to an AI component in Alteryx, summarize column F for me into one of up to 8 categories around trouble ticket. And again, we run these transformations in our product. So then when that workflow step hits, it reads everything in column E and it creates a new column F, and it summarizes those things. So we're creating a set of tools as well that really leverage AI. And what's valuable about that is I can use that as part of one of these data workflows. Yes, I could go myself, download all the support ticket data and load it into an AI tool. Again, you might have a lot of challenges just getting an approved AI tool to do that in a company. Imagine having a contained environment where maybe every day I want to be running a workflow around my support tickets. Part of what I need is that summarization. So being able to bring that AI into a workflow is really important. So yeah, big investments with AI across every part of the product and in how the product overall is being used in the AI value chain.
Yeah, lots of exciting things coming. And I think it's fascinating to see how AI is completely transforming the product and how people interact with data and moving from dashboard to really these dynamic reports that are AI generated. I find this super fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
it feels like a really big next step in the data space, right? Instead of people having to go look around and try to figure out the conclusions themselves, the ability to say, hey, look over here. Here's the trend analysis. This is the thing you should be thinking about. Here's what else I've noticed in the data. It's really valuable.
yeah, exactly. Now I'd love to look into the future. How do you see the data and AI landscape evolving over the next few years? And where do you see Alteryx's role and its impact in this?
Yeah, I think the really big one is companies getting past using mostly unstructured data in their AI and trying to get to their actual structured data. Today, the most powerful use cases around AI tend to be I'm using creative works to create other creative works. So I can feed, I don't know, a large language model, a bunch of interesting marketing material, and it will do interesting marketing speak back. It's really valuable. It's a great use case. That's different than asking you what's going on in the Southwest region and having it understand how to analyze your business. So one, I think that change is coming. I think the second is organizations starting to really think about what data do they want to own, what AI models do they want to own? I wonder how much companies are going to think about doing this a bit themselves, right? How do I get it in my data? How do I have AI agents that understand my business more broadly? What does that trend look like? Again, do I buy that from a handful of my major business application vendors and then make it smarter about the rest of my business? That could certainly be true. Do I bring in the large language models myself as a large company and decide that this is a critical enterprise asset that I want to own? And then how do I connect all my data into that, which is again something Alteryx is helping our customers with. But I think it's going to bring up some really interesting decisions about what are companies investing in? Are they investing in their enterprise systems that they built over the last 20 years getting smarter and turning into AI agents? Are they going to be moving away from those systems and building their own? I think the whole surface area is fascinating. I think we as Alteryx customers doing a whole mix of those things. And our job is really just to make sure that whatever they decide to do, we're helping them get their data into the right place, into the right format, into the right area for them to do it. But I think it's just going to be absolutely fascinating. I think the next 5 years in tech are going to be more interesting than any 5 years, maybe since the dot-com boom, but I think might even be a lot more interesting than that as people really rethink what's possible. And I think that's exciting. So hopefully people that are listening that are into technology, that maybe into analytics, look at that uncertainty as opportunity. Because I said earlier, there are going to be a lot of business jobs that change due to AI. And I think for some folks, that's a pretty big concern. But I think if you're in the data and analytics space, there's going to be a big need for a lot of knowledge on how businesses operate. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your time, Andy. That was truly fascinating and exciting. And inspirational. For anyone who ever wants to rewatch this, you can simply head to my YouTube channel, or if you want to listen to this, you can find me on any podcast platform where you can find this conversation and hundreds like it on the future of business and technology. And Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernard. I really enjoyed it. This was a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.